Hey everybody, welcome to MedMe Academy. Today we're going to be talking about personality disorders. So before we get started, let's take a brief overview of what personality disorders entail. So first we have cluster A, which is our weird type. So these people are super odd, they can be eccentric, they can be described as maybe individuals who exhibit unusual behaviors or thoughts as well. So that's cluster A. Now, with cluster B, we have our wild type. So these people are dramatic, they're erratic, they have intense emotions and interpersonal difficulties. And lastly, we have cluster C, which is our worried type. These patients are super, super anxious and they're super fearful. So their, I don't know, maybe their levels of anxiety or fear will interrupt with their interactions. And an important thing to note is that with personality disorders, they are kind of like a lifelong thing. They're chronic, they're pervasive, they really disrupt these people's lives and their interactions with other people. And that's how you can kind of distinguish personality disorders from other psych conditions. So now let's kind of take a closer look at cluster A. So with cluster A, there's three sort of personality disorders we're going to look at. First, we have paranoid, then schizoid, and schizotypal. So paranoid personality disorder, these people are super suspicious and distrustful of other people. So sometimes in question stems, this looks like a person who maybe believes that there's an investigation an investigation like with the CIA, or maybe their neighbors are watching them. The neighbors might have put cameras in their smoke alarms, their smoke detectors. People are looking through their windows. People are like knocking at their door and then running away. That sort of thing. So people with paranoid personality disorder, again, super suspicious, super distrustful. And one of the defense mechanisms that they have is projection. So because they're super heightened and hyper aware, they have these suspicions and distrust, they will then project those feelings onto other people. And usually those other people are people who the patient thinks is involved in maybe a grand scheme or, these sorts of delusions. So next we have schizoid personality disorder. These people have they're usually described as kind of weird or maybe loners. They're really isolated and they have like limited facial expression. So, in question stems, this may be someone who spends a lot of time in their basement, plays video games down there, works down there, kind of works maybe like a remote job. Um, and one big thing with schizoid personality disorder is that these people do not care about whether or not they have friends. And that will be important when we talk about avoidant personality disorder coming up. So next we have schizotypal. So these people have odd behaviors and appearances, ideas of reference, perceptual disturbances. They're kind of just awkward and peculiar. So with schizotypal, this might be like a patient who comes into the doctor's office and they're wearing like a trench coat and a hat and gloves, and it's like 90 degrees outside. It's like in the middle of the summer. Another thing with schizotypal is that these people can have magical thinking. So sometimes you'll see in a question stem where like a patient believes in crystals and like healing powers, that sort of thing. That kind of points you towards schizotypal. So let's dive into cluster B here. So with cluster B, these are like our wild type personality disorders. So the four are antisocial, borderline, histrionic, and narcissistic. So with antisocial personality disorder, these people have zero regard for others. Like they do not care. These people are usually like criminals, whether it's assault or homicide, or maybe they used to harm animals or kill animals just for fun. That should point you in the direction of antisocial personality disorder. Now, something important and super high yield when you're looking at antisocial personality disorder is conduct disorder. So you can have someone described in a question stem as, presenting like antisocial personality disorder. And when you look in the question stem, you'll see antisocial and conduct disorder. So the big thing that you will need to choose between and look at is the age difference. If the patient is greater than 18 years old, pick antisocial. If they're less than 18, pick conduct disorder. So if a patient has conduct disorder in childhood, they usually will go on to develop or be re-diagnosed as antisocial as an adult. Now, the next personality disorder is borderline personality disorder. So these people are super impulsive, they have unstable relationships, they have frequent SI and SH attempts, and or they just have thoughts. And two high-yield things about borderline personality disorder is splitting. So these people think in extremes. There's no gray area. They either love something or they hate something. And that even reflects in the relationships that they have with other people. They may absolutely love someone, but if they feel offended or they feel wronged, they will, in a split second, make an impulsive decision and be like, you know what, I actually hate this person. They're the worst person ever, that sort of thing. The second high yield thing for borderline personality disorder is that this is the only personality disorder that has a treatment, and that's dialectical behavioral therapy. So with histrionic personality disorder, these people are super attention-seeking, they're provocative, emotional, that sort of thing. So this might present as a patient who comes to her physician's office, she's wearing very provocative clothing, revealing clothing, and she's trying to flirt with the physician, asking them about like relationships and maybe wanting to, go on a date with them or something. That's histrionic. Next, we have narcissistic. This is described as a grandiose, entitled, fragile ego. They're defensive with criticism, and they have no empathy whatsoever. So this may be someone who was at work and they were, doing an evaluation, and they said, you're so great at this and this and this, but here's some critique for you. Constructive criticism. They, even if it's constructive, they take any sort of criticism as like a dig to their ego. So these people look very confident and put together on the outside, but if they feel like, their ego's being chipped away at, they will immediately crack and they get very upset, they get very mad, they get very angry. So that's narcissistic personality disorder. And lastly, we have cluster C. So these are really worried people. So the three personality disorders in this cluster are avoidant, we have dependent, and obsessive-compulsive. So with avoidant personality disorder, these people want relationships, but they fear rejection and they have a super low self-esteem. So this is in contrast to schizoid personality disorder. With schizoid personality disorder, these people did not want relationships and they were a loner. They don't want to socialize. With avoidant personality, these people want relationships. They really want them, but they think so lowly of themselves that it impairs their ability to do so. Next, we have dependent personality disorder. These people can be submissive, clingy, they have difficulty making decisions, that sort of thing. And with dependent personality disorder, I think I've seen this kind of present in question stems where maybe, a young lady was in a relationship with a guy. He cooked for her, he cleaned for her, he brought home, contributed financially to the household. And then they broke up. And now the girl is kind of stuck, can't make money on her own, and that sort of thing. So that's how I've seen questions phrased. Now, with obsessive-compulsive personality disorder, this is very different than OCD or obsessive-compulsive disorder. So obsessive-compulsive personality disorder is characterized by rigid, inflexible thinking. This person's a perfectionist, they desire order, they kind of live their life going through systems every day. They like structure, they like schedules. If there's any deviation from these schedules or structures, they get really upset and they really kind of don't know what to do. Another thing, they set really high expectations for themselves, and if they don't meet those expectations, they're thinking, they get really hard on themselves, and they just get really low and down. So a lot of med students are obsessive-compulsive personality disorder, or at least have some of those traits, which is a-okay. But with OCD, this is different in that they have these super intrusive thoughts. And to get rid of these intrusive thoughts, sometimes they partake in compulsions, which are behaviors to kind of relieve those thoughts. So, it can be easily confused with OCPD, personality disorder. So make sure that you guys really know the difference between those two. So that's all for this. I thank you guys for watching so much. Please please subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos on upcoming psych conditions and high yield topics.